Okay, thanks for dealing with the technical difficulties with us, everybody. We're going to get started here for the sake of time. I'll be admitting people as they come into the room. So welcome everyone to the meeting. It's being hosted by Build a Fighting NALC, which is a rank and file reform movement made up of members of the National Association of Letter Carriers. And we're going to be speaking from across the country. We're all speaking in a personal capacity here today. Today's the last BFN Zoom meeting before the NALC National Convention happening just in a few weeks, August 5th through 9th. Over the past 6 months, we've held a handful of Zoom meetings and built a real movement for open bargaining that has brought together hundreds of active members of the NALC who want to fight to transform our union. And I think the way to think about that is, yes, we've had hundreds in these meetings, but we all know 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 other carriers that are talking. We're discussing these things with them at our stations. And so in reality, we're reaching thousands of NALC members with these meetings. If the last 6 months has taught us anything, it's that open bargaining is just the beginning. What we need really is a broader program, a broader set of demands to turn NALC into a real democratic fighting union that can really win for our members on the streets, in the stations, all of that stuff. Let me introduce myself really quick. I'm Tyler Vassar. I'm a shop steward with NALC Branch 9 in Minneapolis. And I'm a part of the Build a Fighting NALC Coordinating Committee, a group that is committed to building a national rank and file led reform movement in our union, like I was saying. Before I go on with introducing the meeting, I want to talk about an unfortunate and a really tragic event that happened this week. This week, we lost a union sister, Miss Octavia Redmond from Branch 11, who was shot and killed in Chicago while delivering her route. I personally, and on behalf of Build a Fighting NALC, want to extend my condolences to her family, to her friends, her coworkers, and her community. I mean, this is a tragedy that should not have happened. Whether it's violence against carriers on the street or harassment, bullying, intimidation from management in the stations, all letter carriers deserve to be safe at work. That's just straight up. What we're trying to do with this movement is build a union that not only fights and wins better wages and working conditions for members, but also fights for a better world overall. We live in a society where violence is prevalent, where political polarization is growing, where people can be isolated and alienated from each other. I truly believe that if we build a fighting labor movement, unionize every job, lift everyone up, then we can make a real difference in people's lives, that we can cut across the things that divide us, that we can give young people hope for the future, that we can start to tackle the social ills that plague our society as a whole. Our union says enough is enough, and I agree. Everybody deserves to be safe at work. That's on the street and in the stations. What we're doing with this effort, with this movement that we're building, is an important part of the process of not just transforming our union, but honestly, for building a better society, a better world. So once again, my condolences and my thoughts are with the family, the friends, the community of our sister from Branch 11 in Chicago, Ms. Octavia Redmond. May she rest in peace. And yeah, I just wanted to say something about that before we get started, because that's been, I think, really big news this week. And a tragedy that I'm sure we've seen on social media and in the news. With that, I think we can get on with the rest of our meeting. Like I was saying, over the past several months, we've built a real movement for reform in NALC, for a new approach for the union that we need and deserve. This is exemplified really by the 44 NALC branches and 2 state associations that have passed the open bargaining resolution. We're in a strong position to fight for it going into the convention. And at our last Zoom meeting in early June, I think the number was 36. So just in the last month, what is that? I'm a mail carrier, I'm bad at math. Eight more branches have passed the open bargaining resolution. I mean, it shows that we have a lot of momentum going into the convention itself. What these Zoom meetings have also shown is that we have a lot more work to do in NALC than just winning the open bargaining resolution. It's become clear for hundreds, and in reality, thousands of NALC members that we need reform. We need a real transformation of NALC as a whole. But that transformation is not going to come out of nowhere. No one else will do that job for us. It's become clear that we need to fight to take back our union, right? Which is why we want to turn Build a Fighting NALC from a series of Zoom meetings into a real national rank and file movement. eventually reform caucus with real structures and democratically elected leadership to try to transform this union. We want to build, a real national movement that fights for union members, from the contract to the shop floor and everywhere in between, as we've said many times before. Just really quickly, like NALC has a history of this sort of movement. We're not coming out of nowhere with this. Following the 1970 Wildcat strike, Vincent Sombrado and others across the country organized what was called the National Rank and File Caucus. The Rank and File Caucus was the force that won one member, one vote for national officers in NALC in the early 70s. I said something like this at the last meeting, but I want to go over it again. And they eventually got Sombrado elected to the national presidency. They were the real force coming out of that strike that won significant gains in wages and working conditions for letter carriers in the years following that. We can do that again today, but we need to get organized to fight for the modern issues facing letter carriers. A lot of which are the same issues that were facing letter carriers in the 1970, like wages that haven't kept up with inflation, a tax on service, worsening working conditions. And the last thing I'll say before introducing the speakers is that a group like Build a Fighting NALC cannot exist just by saying we want something new. We cannot exist just by pointing out what we are against. We have to be based on a set of ideas, demands, a program. We want something new, and this is what that looks like, which is why we have started discussions about what that program would look like, how to develop it, how to make sure we're addressing all the biggest concerns facing letter carriers. And we've come up on the coordinating committee with at least an initial 5-point program that is open bargaining, $30 an hour starting wage, end mandatory overtime, a worker's wage for union officers, and the right to strike. And maybe you don't agree with everything there, but are there things you do agree with that we can fight on and work on together? If you do agree, I encourage you to get involved with BFN going forward. We're going to talk more about that later and what that looks like. I want to announce here, we're going to talk about this later on in the meeting, but I want to announce here, we have reserved a 400-person capacity room at the convention center in Boston. So we'll be hosting an in-person meeting, a public meeting to talk about how we can continue the fight to transform NALC in the months and years ahead. You won't have to deal with me trying to deal with technical difficulties. We'll be in person. In my opinion, that's much better than just sitting in your office or your living room or your kitchen table. Although Zoom is great, it gives us the ability to connect across this gigantic country. But nothing beats being in person. And that meeting is going to be, more information is going to come out, but I just want to announce it's going to be on Wednesday, August 7th, probably at 7 p.m. after the general session and after the workshops are finished for the day. This will be a great opportunity for us to meet in person, put forward a vision for how we can move forward. Boston is an expensive city and we're a grassroots effort. And so we set up a GoFundMe to take donations to pay for the room. They wouldn't even let us do an hourly pay. They made you pay for a full day. We think it's worth it. We're going to be sharing that link and throughout the meeting. If everyone pitches in, we will easily be able to pay for that room and be able to meet in person. So again, we're going to talk about that a little bit more later, but with that, I'll introduce the 3 speakers and then talk a little, So the 3 speakers are going to be first Corey Walton, everyone's favorite podcast host from A to Arbitration and member of NALC Branch 4 in Nashville, Tennessee. Then we have Virgilio Goze, member of Branch 79 in Seattle, Washington, and Ernest Gonzalez, member of Branch 421 in San Antonio, Texas. With so many people in the meeting, we want to make sure we do this in an organized way and are able to hear from as many people as possible, as many speakers as possible. And I'll explain how the discussion portion will go once we get there. We can expect this meeting to be about an hour and a half. Throughout the meeting, Tim Bash will be putting the sign-in sheet and the GoFundMe link in the chat. Please donate, please sign in. It will allow us to stay connected. It will help us identify who will be delegates, where people are joining us from, and so on. So with that, all right, garbage truck is driving by. Hopefully it's not too loud. With that, I will give it over to Corey Walton from Branch 4, Nashville, Tennessee. He's going to talk a little bit about the National Convention, its role in shaping the direction of NALC, and how we can be a part of that. So, Corey, you should be able to unmute yourself. Go ahead, brother.
All right. Thank you, my brother. Hey, Tyler, do me a favor. Send me the info on that room, and I'll put it out today when I do my podcast, and I'll also put it on Reddit and Discord and from arbitration.com.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I'll do that.
Absolutely. And we'll see if we can get that taken care of. So that'll be one less thing on your plate before you get to Boston. And but we'll be able to handle that. That shouldn't be a concern. But send me that when we get off of here, okay? And I'll you said you had a way to pay for it. what'd you say? PayPal or
It's
something?
a
GoFundMe.
It's a GoFundMe. Yeah, we'll be sharing it in the
Send me
chat
a,
and we'll send it to you. We'll make sure to get that to you right after this.
okay. All
Thank
right.
you,
Yeah, I
Colton.
appreciate it. I realize I'm speaking to the choir today when we're talking about all these things, but that's a good thing, but when you talk about this movement and when you have 100 and what is it, 151, and you'll be putting it on YouTube. That's where it all begins, is a movement like this. And I think you can tell from about a year ago, Tyler, that just looking at social media, you have all kind of podcasts coming out now. You've got Angry Mailman, the YouTube channel, he's on there. People are not happy with their union right now. And you look at y'all's movement, building a fighting NALC. Um, Even though from 8 arbitration started out as something I was hoping to just be educational, it's turned into something completely different. And it's because, y'all are a younger movement. I'm an older guy, turned 55 Friday. But uh, everybody's tired of the way this union is going right now. And I think that's quite obvious. The way it's running. When you look at the lack of fight for our contract, and people say this is the way it always goes, I don't buy that, Tyler. 427 days as of today is when our contract expired. 427 days. Over 20 weeks ago, we solicited a neutral arbitrator. Now, when you solicit a neutral arbitrator, that means both parties have come to an impasse. We've done everything that we can do. We've sat down as much as we can sit down. Let's get a neutral arbitrator. That was 20 weeks ago. And you still see where we're meeting in these hotel rooms, trying to hash things out, coming out of that. Well, we came to no resolution. Hey, baby, that time has come and gone. 20 weeks ago, we should have scheduled an arbitration date. And we're still here messing around with this stuff. I think that that's got people upset, and rightfully so. You talked about that earlier, but that's 427 days. We are fighting with inflation right now. Some people don't acknowledge it. It is real. It is true. You look at the workroom floor. It's as bad now, Tyler, as I've ever seen it in my 32 years of delivering mail. With hell, y'all know how I feel, stationary events, hour office times, these load times and everything. They are running over us on the workroom floor. And it pisses me off, man. I know if y'all listen, y'all know how I feel about that. Nothing makes me angrier than how my people are being done on this workroom floor right now based off of these things. And no fight whatsoever from our union up high. You've got a president right now that is out of this fight. And so it's encouraging to me to see build a fighting NALC. You see these other movements that are going on. You got CCAs that are trying to start their own movement right now. So that's encouraging. You look at what can we do? Well, start with y'all. Look at what y'all are doing. Y'all are a relatively new movement, and y'all come on like gangbusters. Everybody's heard of you. Everybody's paying attention to these young bucks that have come in here with this movement, building a fighting NALC. That's major. You want to make change? That's how you make change. Don't be discouraged. Do not be discouraged at this national convention when y'all go there. You're going to have some heavy hitters on the other side, old heads, the establishment that's going to rise up big time. They do not want open bargaining. They do not want it. Because of things like you see now with these 427 days. Do you think they want us to know what they're asking for and why we've made it 427 days? There's a reason for that. So do not be dismayed. Do not be discouraged. Whatever happens at national, do not be discouraged. Y'all have to understand that when you talk about a relatively new movement. Now, I'm not saying it's going to go one way or the other. I'm just saying as a new movement. Y'all are, like I said, y'all are coming on like gangbusters. Don't be discouraged. You created a movement. All great things have come with that. Will come with that movement. That in whatever you look at, we're in history, whatever you look at, it's all started with that ground roots uprising, that movement, right? You got these Zoom meetings. I would have never sat on a Zoom meeting on a Sunday at noon. That's just, that's not me, brother. I got one day off and I do a podcast on that, but I'm all in. I told you that when you were on my podcast, man. I'm all in on this movement. I'm all in on what y'all are doing. And it's the only thing that's discouraging is that it took some young whippersnappers to get a movement that we should have been doing nationwide forever. Who in the hell would have thought that we'd have to get a movement called Build a Fighting NALC? That makes no sense. We should all want that. But it's just not the way it is, man. When you look at our national leadership right now, it's just not the way it is. You look at our business agents, it's just not the way it is. And so it's discouraging, but it's also encouraging because it took something like that to come about. You want to make change. That's one way. That's one way to make change is this movement. Uh, you've got to organize. You got to organize. You got to get whoever is on these podcasts, get your word out there to them. Get these people on the workroom floor talking about building a fighting NALC. What that's about. It's going to be resources. It's going to take you a little bit. This room is good. You're going to have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people in Boston. If you've never been, it's quite a spectacle. It is intimidating. And when you walk in there for that first time and see just the enormity of it, but it gives you a great opportunity. You're talking about this room, it gives you a great opportunity to get your voice out there and get people involved. Um, that's how you start. Um, you're talking about these resolutions and the constitutional amendments and things like that. Uh, that's where the rubber meets the road, is at these conventions. You want to make change, you got to get in there and get these constitutional amendments, and it's going to take support. It's going to take, like you say, word of mouth. People in that meeting, in that convention, that they understand who you are, what you're about. They've heard your message. I think you're going to come on again before the convention. I believe we'll do maybe a midweek something, give you that opportunity to continue to get your word out there as far as that's concerned. Because when we get to the convention, people will know this movement and we will make sure of it. And whoever is on any kind of social media needs to be putting this movement out there so that people aren't asking, who is that? Who's that young guy out there talking about open bargaining? And so you look at what's going to be talked about. You got your open bargaining, obviously. You got the FNDCs. You can cut me off if I'm going too long. You know how I get. I'll say, I'll say I'm just going to speak a minute. I'll be here 3 hours talking to you, but I'm trying to cut it short. And you look at the appeals, the appeals on Renfro's charges. Matter of fact, today's episode, when it comes out later on today, I have Charlie Miller. He's going to be talking about those appeals. Very interesting conversation I had with him. What are y'all going to do? What are you going to be? When you go to this convention, what is building a fighting NALC? What are y'all going to be about? Are y'all going to go up there with a whimper? Are you going to, because you're going to need to get there early so that you can see the different places that you stand, how that looks. There's going to be about 8 different podiums that you can go up to and stand, and you're going to talk in front of 10,000 people, and these buttons you got to push, and what are you going to say? It's okay to have things written down when you talk. There's nothing wrong with having, whatever you're going to say, have it written down. and just read the damn thing. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, you can go up there and say, I'm going to do this by memory. And as soon as you get in front of 10,000 people, you'll forget your name. I have seen it. I remember I was in an arbitration once, and it was a 6-day count, and management came in there, and this guy was a nervous wreck. You could tell he was shaking, hand was shaking, his voice was shaking. And under cross examination, the very first question I asked him, I said, Mr. Rice, his name was James Rice, and he was a good guy. And he's since retired, but I said, what station do you work at? Now, this is a manager of a station. He could not remember the station he worked at. He was so nervous. It's pressure like that. Y'all need to understand when you're talking in front of 10,000 people, that's going to be pressure, right? What are you going to be about when you get in front of those 10,000 people? Are you going to come in there with a whimper? You're not sure of yourself. You're questioning now that you're in front of all these people. You're looking up there at the executive council in front of you, all your brothers and sisters filling this place. Are you going to go up there with a whimper and not sure of yourself, your hand shaking? Or are you going to go up there and make sure that, hey, I know what I'm doing is righteous and it's right. And this is what this movement is about. It's about building a fighting NALC because we do not have that now. That's what the people need to understand. That's what they need to see out of you and whoever in the hell's going to go up there and plead y'all's case for this open bargaining. Y'all need to make sure y'all get that right. You know, I keep talking about the lions are coming. You know, I love that vision. The lions are coming. I know for a fact we're fucking coming. I don't just preach that shit every week. We're coming. And so when the CLC, when they initiate these appeals, they're not going to half step when they go up there to those podiums and say that stuff. They're not going to half step it. They're going to go up there and say, hey, this cat needs to be gone. And this is why. And so, you know, you got 2 weeks, baby. You got 2 weeks to get y'all shit right. But I believe in you. I do. I believe in everything that y'all are about, and I'm here 100%. I'll do whatever I can to make sure that this movement, building a fighting NALC, will succeed. We need it more now than at any time in the history of this union, other than in 1970. We need it. But I guess that's all I got to talk about.
All right, Corey, I appreciate that. You sure that's all you got?
I may think of something else later.
All right. All right, you can always come back in. All right, Corey, I appreciate that. There's a lot
All
to
right, man.
a lot to digest there, but yeah, we'll be back on the podcast right before the convention, and I appreciate everything you've been doing. Up next, we've got Virgilio Goze from Branch 79 in Seattle, Washington. He's gonna walk through a bit. Corey gave us a good introduction. He gave us a sort of sense of what's at stake, what we're trying to do with this. And Virgilio is going to talk a little bit more about how the resolutions work, how to vote, some of the logistical aspects of the convention itself, and just walk us through. He's going to spend a few minutes just kind of walking us through, because I don't know about everyone else here. It's going to be my first convention, and I hope there's a lot of people returning. I hope there's a lot of people that this is their first of many conventions. Virgilio is going to help us walk through a little bit of the logistical stuff. So Virgilio, go ahead. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hello, good morning and good afternoon to everybody. My name is Virgilio Goze. I am Sergeant at Arms and also part of the coordinating committee for Branch 79 and the building of Fighting NALC. So I will talk about a little bit about our national convention. In our NALC constitution, the national convention is the highest body of the NALC, and this is the place where we put forward what the bargaining positions are for the National Association of Letter Carriers during contract bargaining. This is the place where, NALC members, through electing delegates at the local level, can put forward resolutions and amendments to the Constitution and guide what the NALC does for the next 2 years and moving forward. So yeah, this is one of the main ways that if you feel that you don't like what's going on in the union, you come to your branch meeting, and you propose something and it goes up the chain, like it passes your branch, it goes to your state association typically, and it gets debated there democratically, and it goes to the national convention afterwards if it gets approved. So the NALC National Convention is very important in getting our voices heard. A lot of what we believe in is already the official bargaining positions of the NALC. That is one thing that hopefully folks here will think about, is go through that booklet if you are a national delegate, that goes through the resolution history of the NALC, and you're probably going to be like surprised with a lot of the stuff that's in there that is just not being talked about. So how we're going to fight for the open bargaining resolution on the convention floor, and possibly other resolutions you're going to see that you agree with. So for open bargaining and the contract campaign resolution, that's one aspect of the things that are not being talked about, is that there is a contract campaign component in the open bargaining resolution that should be emphasized a little bit more. It's not just about open bargaining, it's about being out there and advocating for what we believe in. So our NALC National Leadership and Executive Council has made sure that everybody knows that they are opposing open bargaining, and they've sent out the business agents, Renfro, and members of the Executive Council to go to the state association meetings and regional RAP sessions throughout the last spring to speak out against the open bargaining resolution. And they've mentioned and made references to it in our NALC bulletins, the latest contract campaign update, or at least a contract update that we've seen in the NALC website, specifically mentions how open bargaining is bad, and we've always done things the way they are, and look at how great it is. I'm pretty sure everybody has gone through a lot of contract cycles, or if you're new, you've seen how bad it's become over the past few years. Well, this is one way we're gonna try and change things, right? So when, for example, the open bargaining resolution comes up to the floor, what's going to happen is the Executive Council will make a recommendation, either one of approval or disapproval. In this particular case, we're expecting to have a disapproval recommendation for the Executive Council, and then the maker or the branch of that proposed this resolution and it has made the motion for this particular resolution will come up to the mic and speak for or motivate for the resolution. And then there will be a discussion with speakers for and against in an alternate manner for, I believe, I'm not really specifically sure. I can't remember. It's been 2 years since I was last in the convention. So it will be go back and forth. But there is more than likely chance that someone from, who are against this particular resolution will go up to the floor and try and call the question, because this typically happens in it's not just this particular resolution, a lot of resolutions. At a certain point, after 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 speakers, someone will just go up there and say, we're tired of the debate, and then the question will be called. And then when the discussion will likely end, because a lot of people will be tired of hearing for our debates. So I would encourage people to come up to the mic and speak to the motion, right? So if the motion for ending debates comes up, that's no debatable, I believe, and then we'll vote on it. And then that would happen is we're going to be voting to whether accept the recommendation of Executive Council. So for our purposes, we'll be voting no on that recommendation of disapproval. And then after that, if we manage to, vote no on the disapproval of the Executive Council and overturn that decision, we will have to go again and vote yes on the resolution itself. So that's one particular example of how a resolutions process will work. It's a lot of Robert's rules. There's probably a lot of objections on the floor and points of orders, but we're going to be there. So I would just encourage folks to come up to the mic and speak to the resolution and flood those mics, because there's going to be like 6 mics, I believe, and we need as many people as possible to be at that mic to make sure that our voices are heard. And the same thing will go for the sorting and delivery center resolution that's just going to come up. I believe there's multiple versions of it that's going to come up. I'm not sure which one's going to be voted on, but there's going to be a resolution opposing the sorting and delivery centers. In the last convention in Chicago, there was a dump the joy resolution that Jamie Partridge of Branch 82 forward that I used actually as a way to speak against and warn everybody about the sorting and delivery centers, because the so-called English professor of the Save the Postal Office website had a really good analysis. I know Renfro looked down on him and said he's just an English professor out of nowhere. What the hell does he know about the Postal Service? Well, apparently he knows more than Renfro and the Board of Governors, who actually reads his pieces, SaveThePostOffice.com, and they get more news out of there than the Joy during these Board of Governors meetings. So, because don't be afraid to speak out, because I came up to that mic, I wrote down what I was going to say. That's one thing you can do, is just write down what you're going to say. I read it to the mic and people listen. I mean, I was assured by the National Executive Council that we don't know what the hell's going to happen with the SNDCs. Well, 2 years through this experiment of the sorting delivery centers and consolidation, we know what the results are. A lot of our service standards being destroyed, a lot of workers having to drive long treks to their workplaces. So yeah, I mean, don't be afraid to speak out. You're probably gonna, once you speak in that mic, you're probably representing 10 or more, hundreds of people across the country, hundreds of letter carriers, because you probably are just voicing the opinions that are on people's minds. That's one way I get over like my fear of speaking in public, is just thinking that, hey, what I'm saying is just something that someone else is probably gonna want to say, and you're just too afraid to say it. So don't be afraid. This is a democratic union, and people will listen if we, this is one way we're gonna get our voices heard. That's pretty much it. Thank you very much, Tyler, for the time, and hopefully I'll see you all in the Boston this time.
All right, Virgilio, thank you so much. Yeah, kind of walking people through that process, because I know that was it can be a little confusing, but it'd be a good learning experience for all of us, and I think you put that out really nicely. Just a reminder, Tim, our friend Tim Bash is going to be putting the sign-in sheet into the group, into the chat every once in a while. If you can sign in, please do so. It'll allow us to be able to stay connected, identify those who are delegates, get you a part of the WhatsApp group where we're going to have be able to give real-time updates during the convention. I also forgot to say, everyone wish Corey Walton a belated birthday. His birthday was on Friday. I forgot to say that, but thanks for having him come on and speak to what we're talking about. And thanks for Helio for walking through the logistical aspects of what we're trying to do here. It's important not just to focus on the broad things, but also to get a little specific every once in a while. Thank you for that. So up next, we're going to have Ernest Gonzalez from Branch 421 in San Antonio, Texas. He's going to talk about Build a Fighting NALC and our plans for the convention itself, and a little bit about that. So Ernest, go ahead. You should be able to unmute yourself. Go ahead.
How you guys doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, great. So my name is Ernest Gonzalez. I'm a steward out in Branch 421 down here in San Antonio. On the coordinating committee with Tyler and Virgilio, who just spoke to you guys. And I'm glad to see everybody here. I want to thank everybody for taking, the time out of their Sunday. I know we don't get much time to ourselves as it is. So for you guys to take that precious time and to be on here with us, we really appreciate it. One thing I continue to go back to, what I figured out about, unfortunately, the society that we continue to live in, is we're surrounded by very unexceptional people who are obsessed with convincing themselves and everybody else around them that they are indeed exceptional. Unfortunately, that has trickled into almost every single important job, not only in our union, not only in the Postal Service, but in our society as a whole. There are people who are just not qualified to do the jobs that they have simply because they kissed the right asses and they shook the right hands. Because of that, we have continued to suffer, not only as a society as a whole, but as a working class people. We are continually getting the shaft when it comes to our wages, continually getting the shaft when it comes to our benefits. We're continually getting the shaft when it comes to our representational rights. when the fact that anyone who's seen the presidential debate, if those are our only options, we are in a fucking sad state of affairs, unfortunately. But that's the world that we live in. Until we get off our asses and demand that there is more of an option, and that people who are in very important positions with a lot of authority, that they're qualified to do the jobs that they're in there for. And we just don't have that right now. Again, it doesn't stop at our union, and it doesn't stop at the Postal Service. This is a gigantic problem that we have as society in general. Whether or not this movement that we're building here is going to be a part of something more special later on down the road, I don't know. But I will be damned if I sit by idly and just allow these people in these positions, simply because they feel that they're entitled to those positions, continue to ruin it for the rest of us when we're the ones paying the damn bills around here. Everybody in this chat right now, you do the work that feeds everybody. And we should always remember that. I don't give a damn if they come to work in a suit and tie and they come to work driving a Mercedes Benz. I don't care. I feed your ass, and don't ever forget that. As Boston starts to come around, that's the message that I would hope that we continue to take forward. We're the ones that feed you, and you're not going to forget that. I will not allow you to forget that. If you're going to continue to make a living off of the fruits of my labor, then I'm going to tell you how you're going to treat me. And I'm going to demand that you do so. I would suggest that everybody on this Zoom meeting start carrying themselves with that demeanor, because that's the only way that we're going to fix the broader problem that we have in this society. As far as the NALC is concerned, or with this movement, Build a Fighting NALC, what it represents, at least to me, if we have open bargaining, we can start to demand that this is what you're going to ask for our sake, and this is what we need to have a legitimate way of life here. We're not going to wait until you fuck us on a contract and then start to bitch and moan afterwards. We're going to start now, that we're going to ask for what we want to ask for before you have an opportunity to sit down at that bargaining table. Because as of right now, the only thing we can do is moan and groan after we've already taken the shaft. And that to me is a losing battle. It's continued to be a losing battle. It will only be a losing battle going forward. I don't care what the national officers say. I don't care what our executive council says. They're wrong. And our history, at least up until this point, has shown that to be true. If we can get to a situation where we can organize around our demands on a national contract, at some point or another, we're going to need the bargaining chip of striking. I'm not telling us to strike right now, obviously, but if we do not have that right, we are severely outgunned. You have to have the right to say, if we don't get what we need, not what we want, if we don't get what we need to put food on the table for ourselves and our family, we're not going to work. That means nobody gets paid. If we don't get paid, you don't get fucking paid. At some point, we need to start demanding that as a craft and as a class of people. I would hope that we could put that forward when we get to Boston. Again, I would hope that everybody in this meeting now would take that to heart and start carrying themselves with that demeanor. Whether or not my generation does something about it, I don't know. I'm simply trying to do the best that I can to fix the society that we have as a whole. I have 2 children. I would hope that before my time here is done, I can look both of them in the eyes and tell them I left you with a better world than I came into. As of right now, I can't say that. I don't think most of us can say that. What Build a Fighting NALC would hope to achieve, at least in theory right now, because again, we're a very young institution. We're still trying to figure out what it is that we stand for, and we're still figuring out how to organize ourselves. What this would hope to achieve later on down the road, that is, if you can't get anywhere with the U.S. Postal Service, and you can't get anywhere with the NALC as a whole, there is a rank and file movement that you can turn to, where you can start to build real momentum to start demanding that when these people that are in these 2 institutions are not qualified for the positions that they are in, you can start a grassroots movement and hopefully get them the hell out of there. All I can do is continue to do what we've been doing up until this point, which is to try to take this message to as many people as we can. Hopefully, it will not fall on deaf ears, and hopefully we can start to build real momentum so that we can start doing real work before these unqualified people in these very important positions fuck it up for everybody. I want to thank everybody again for taking the time out of their day and for listening to this little mailman down in South Texas for, the precious time that you guys have. I want to thank everybody for being on here. Thank you for your time. And I look forward to seeing you all in Boston, man. Thanks again, Tyler.
All right, Ernest. I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say thank you for that. That was, inspiring. You really put into words what we are trying to do here. This isn't just because like, oh man, I wish I made a little bit more money, or I wish I had a lighter route or something. No, like we're fighting for a union for things that we need. We need better wages to fight against, to keep up against inflation. We need a union that fights for us on the workroom floor. These things can help transform society, like I was saying earlier in the meeting. Just a couple of things I want to add to that, and then we'll open it up for discussion and I'll explain that. Is at the convention, Build a Fighting NALC, BFN. We're not just going to be at the convention. We will be building at the convention as well. We are going to have clipboards with sign-in sheets if you want to get involved with Build a Fighting NALC, to sign people up, get them involved, let them know about the next meeting and what our plans are for the next months and years. We're going to have flyers explaining our initial 5-point program and open bargaining. And we're going to have on that flyer the meeting, time, date, and location for our public meeting that's going to be happening Wednesday, August 7th, after the workshops, likely at 7 p.m. Information will be coming out about that. And so just be aware of that. Anyone who's willing and able to help us build, you can get people in your branch or your region signed up. Information will be coming out about that. We will welcome that, because that's how we build this. So we turn this from a grassroots, loosely organized effort into something that's real, and can bring us into fighting in the union in the years to come. So if you want to speak, please, like I've said, message Tim Bash. He's going to make a list of everyone. We're going to go in order. We've got a couple people on, but we got a lot of room there. We have everyone muted at the moment. And so as I call on you, I'll unmute you so you can speak. We want to give everyone a chance to speak who wants to. So please keep it brief if you can, 3-4 minutes. At about 3 minutes, I'll ask you to just finish up your thought. And you can just finish up your thought in the next minute, and then we can move on to the next person. I'm sorry if I have to interrupt you, but I'll try to do so politely. So with that, I will give it over to our first speaker, which is Jamie Partridge. Jamie, go ahead, buddy. If you want to unmute yourself, you can go ahead and speak.
Hey, everyone. Jamie Partridge, retired letter carrier, Portland, Oregon. Been in this union for 40 years. Had the pleasure of working when Vince Zambrano was president. I put in the chat the link to the website of Communities and Postal Workers United, which is a 10-year-old project. All the different postal unions plus community organizations across the country organizing to basically save the public postal service. No cuts, no closures, no delay of mail. So we have a decent relationship with the national leadership. We've been able to secure a room at the convention center for free at every convention for multiple years. And so on Tuesday evening at 7, we'll be having what we're calling a rank and file exchange, which is basically discussing working conditions, but also resolutions. And on Tuesday, we will have discussed the constitutional amendments, but the resolutions don't usually get started until Wednesday or later. So folks have an opportunity to put forward their not only thoughts about the resolutions coming up, but I want to give time to Building and Fighting NALC as well. It's Tuesday evening at 7, and I'm not sure what the number of the room is, but it'll actually be announced from the front, and we'll have flyers as well. The other thing that I've been assured by Nicole Ryan is that there'll be a literature table that will be available to anyone that wants, not just branches that, reserve space, pay for space, but there'll be an open literature which we've been able to access in the past to put our newsletter out. So just think about that opportunity to get word out to people. I also wanted to mention that some thoughts about getting to the mic and hacking the mics when our, especially open bargaining resolution, but other resolutions come up, that we really have to get at every single mic and have 2, 3, 4 people deep, because the national leadership will send the business agents out to grab a mic and cut off a debate. The other thing is that if they do and they try to cut off debate, we have a number of different options, which aren't necessarily a parliamentary procedure, but we can have signs that say, let us speak. We can actually chant, let us speak. We can even take signs up to the front of the hall and hold them up, let us speak, or, open bargaining now, or whatever we want. If you pay attention to what other unions do at their national conventions, they do this kind of stuff. And the leadership will respond to that kind of pressure. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jamie. That was really helpful. I remember we're gonna bring on Mr. Mike Cariff next. I told him he could go up early because he's out and about, and he's stepping in just so he can speak here. So we're gonna give it over to him next. Sorry, so he's just gonna bump him up the stack, but then we'll start going in order after that. So, all right, Mike, go ahead. You should be able to unmute yourself.
All right, Tyler, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, perfect. Yeah, thanks for bumping me up a little bit here. I'm out here at the Branch 2 picnic outside of Milwaukee in Muskego, Wisconsin. Actually, the Vice President James Henry's here. The business agent Patrick Johnson's out here. President Rob Kozier, shout out to everyone. But anyway, I did have a few comments, so I appreciate you giving me a chance. First of all, and Corey kind of mentioned it as well. I was listening, and it was kind of loud, but I was listening to everyone, the speakers. And what Corey said was, why do we got to have a fighting NALC? Why can't we just build the NALC? And, unfortunately, that's just not the case right now. We do have to have a group that is pushing the leadership of the union to take a more, a proactive and fighting stance, fighting for our interests, fighting for our needs. So I know it's necessary, but at some point, we'll just be building the NALC, hopefully, and the whole union will be revolved around fighting for the needs and the interests of the members of the union. So anyway, it's been, and Corey mentioned this too, 427 days. I got a little time capsule thing going at the top of my website, careforprez.org, and it's been 427 days and 16 hours and 50-something minutes, since we've got a contract. And it's really hurt us. No matter how this thing turns out, we're really in a bad position, because if we do end up getting a negotiated agreement with the Postal Service, and, President Renfro keeps saying, oh, I'm having meetings, we're getting closer. And, it's been so long, we could have went to arbitration as of July of last year. There's a 60-day cooling off period, but that ended July. So anyway, we could have been at arbitration, but we're not. So if we do end up getting a negotiated settlement and we ratify it, we could have had that agreement a year ago, and our people have been hurting. A lot of people have quit the job. A lot of people have had to do other things. A lot of people have been doing things to make ends meet and things like that they shouldn't have had to do, because we should have been able to negotiate in a normal time frame and get a contract for our people. So this delay has really, has really hurt us. If we could get a negotiated agreement that we don't like, which is entirely possible, and we vote that thing down, now you got to go back in front of an arbitrator, and there isn't even any dates set yet. And we would be looking at not getting a contract until next year. So that's really hurting us. The other thing, like Ernest talked about, we need to have open bargaining. And the reason why is because the members need to be able to tell their leaders what they want. And right now, with the closed bargaining, with the secretive bargaining that's going on, we don't even know if we're making any progress on the issues. How much money is on the table? Is it enough for us? Are they doing anything about mandatory overtime? Are they doing anything about the harassment on the workroom floor, the daily harassment? Are they doing anything about any number of issues? So I would encourage you guys, when you get to the mic at the convention to speak, it's unprecedented to have that many branches, sponsor a particular resolution. And I was talking a little bit with Tyler this week. I think all of them should speak. And the reason why is I want to know from them, what are the issues that they would want to bring forward in a national contract, that are not being addressed or might be addressed. We really don't know, but because of this secretive bargaining, we don't really know if our issues, our concerns, our things that are important to us are being addressed. So if you have issues in your branch, if you go to my website under the documents section, there's a contract talk document, and it lists like 30-something items that I think are very significant that need to be addressed in the contract. And you may have other ones, or you may say, hey, these are something that are important to us and the members of our branch. I think those things, those items that are important to those members of those branch need to be in front of the delegates. The delegates need to understand that this is why we want open bargaining, because we want to be able to bargain for and fight for, these things with the Postal Service. So, all right, Tyler, you talked about the and I appreciate the words of condolences and the sympathy and everything, the love that has come from all over the country. Our sister Octavia Redmond she was assassinated, man. It was rough. She was assassinated out on her route on Friday, I think about 11 o'clock in the morning. And someone pulled up and they shot her 4 times. She made it to the hospital, but not much after that. And it's just a straight tragedy. And the carriers in Chicago, we're very upset. We're very upset. And I think we were out at the local post office. Maybe about half the carriers showed up to work the next day. The other half didn't. But, we were out there talking with the carriers. And I think the union steward there, her name was Adrienne Frazier. I think she said it best, because a lot of the postal management was there at the station. And she said, where the hell were you guys when we're getting stuck up out here on the routes regularly? Where were you guys at when someone shot up the parking lot and 3 of our vehicles got shot up? Where were you at when someone was murdered right in front of the damn post office, And the Postal Inspection Service was there, and they said that they're a reactive agency. They're not a proactive agency. And we've been fighting with the Postal Service to deploy a police force, which they have, but they don't deploy the police force out on the street to protect us. And maybe it's not everything, but it's something. So anyway, we're mad. I want to let you guys know that tomorrow, anyone that's in the Chicago area, we want you guys to come out. We are going to have a call to action, a rally, 8 a.m. tomorrow morning at the Union Hall in Chicago, 3850 South Wabash. We're not on strike. We're going to work tomorrow, but we're going to go to work and deliver the mail in due time. The first thing we're going to do is come together and gather and let the post office know what our demands are. Our demands. I know President Renfro doesn't like that word, but that's what this is about. We demand that our safety be protected out there in the street. And so we're going to be rallying and meeting and gathering tomorrow at 8 a.m. And then as soon as we're done, we'll go to our routes after that. I want to make one more point, and that is that the local branch in Chicago, just a kind of indication of how dysfunctional the NALC is. And, I'm not running for president for the glory of it. We got serious problems with the leadership in this union. In March, we were set to go to arbitration because the local branch had filed a 1767. And the 1767, this is in Chicago, was that the Postal Service is not doing enough to protect us out on the street, protect our safety. And we had some ideas and suggestions, and they refused to implement them. We filed a 1767 installation-wide. We didn't like their response. We filed a grievance. It went up through the grievance chain. We're going to go to arbitration on March the 4th. We would have had a damn resolve by now, except for the Postal Service said, we're thinking about declaring this issue interpretive. And there's a process in Article 15. I won't bore you with the details to declare something interpretive. But what the Post Office is doing with this grievance, HIP grievances and other grievances, is they're saying, we're thinking about declaring it interpretive. That's not in Article 15. You got to actually declare it interpretive in order for the grievance to be held. And the reason it pisses me off is we were instructed by the National Union to hold the grievances, just like the HIP grievances.
Hey, Mike,
and
could
those
you
grievances
finish up
never
here
heard
in
the light of day.
next minute?
Yeah, that was actually all I had, Tyler. I just wanted to make that one point because it kind of really just pisses me off. But yeah, we'll be gathering tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. at the Union Hall, 3850 South Wabash in Chicago. And thank you for the time, Tyler. Thank everyone for your work in the building of Fighting NALC, and look forward to seeing you all in Boston. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Mike. I gave you a little bit extra time. Thanks for joining us. I know you're out at the Branch 2, Milwaukee Branch 2 picnic. Thanks for joining us for that. I give you a little bit more time. You had some important stuff to say there about a call to action there in Branch 11 and support, and to come out in solidarity for after the death of our sister there. So I give you a little bit extra time. Everyone else, I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little bit more on time, on top of my my stopwatch here. Okay, next up we've got James Brennan. James is joining us from the Rural Carriers Union. He's got some information. I know they're going through similar issues there, and they're trying to build similar sort of movements to change the direction of that union as well. So James,
We gotta go.
go
What?
ahead.
We gotta go. Yeah. What's going on?
Well, thank you, Tyler, for having me on. Thank you guys all for coming into this. I know that both our unions are inept to what's actually going on the street. We have one of our leaders who has not touched a mail route in over 30 years. On top of that, our president hasn't touched one in over 17 years. And the latest update they have is our rec scans. They can now, they're testing being able to allow local management to edit the scans. We talked about it 2 weeks ago on United We Scan podcast. And I've just gotten word from carriers that are in the test offices that management is benchmarking their scans, which basically is going to cut their evaluations. Our leaders are like, it's just a test. They're not going to be able to affect your evaluations. Well, guess what? Tests become reality. Our leadership doesn't listen. And another side of it is they want us to have more PTFs. Well, the thing for the PTFs thing is it's a benefit to the post office. Our union president said it's a benefit to the post office. It's also a benefit to the union because they pay the same amount of dues as a regular carrier that works 5 days a week, and they only work 2 days a week. So I presented a resolution where our PTFs pay less dues than a regular carrier, and that's going to be denied by our resolution committee, and our finance committee is going to put an absurd number on it to try and prevent people from voting for it. And as the maker of it, I'm going to have to step up there and defend it and argue against it because it's lowering dues. And it's going to be the same procedure you guys were talking about. Somebody's going to probably try to step up and call it to question quickly. There's going to be a lot of people that are on the national leadership side trying to step up and argue against it because it's going to lower the amount of dues that go into the union and so on. But the biggest thing here is that we have to fight. We have to fight our own union. Instead of just fighting with management, we have to fight our own leaders, supposed leaders. And I've even had one of our listeners that's in on our live chat turn around and say, stop calling them leaders because they aren't leading anybody. They're just elected representatives that don't have the people's interest in mind when they sit up there. And I mean, our president is exactly the same as your president. He just thinks that everything that management's doing is basically an inconvenience to everybody. Don't worry about it. It's just an inconvenience. It's not going to actually hurt you until it actually does. So just like you guys, we're fighting for the NRLCA. So I wish you guys luck. I know I'm right behind you guys with this, and I'm hoping that we can get our guys elected this year and we can start working with you guys to make both the NALC and the NRLCA stronger together, because even though we're different crafts, we're all in this together.
That's right. All right. Thanks, James. I think that's fantastic. I'm a firm believer that we need more coordination. At the very least, we need more coordination between the postal unions. We face a lot of the same issues. And thanks for some of that info. That's been helpful. Next up, we've got Geraldine Clifford. Geraldine, you should be able to unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah. Am I unmuted?
Yes,
Can
you
you-
are. Yeah, we can hear you.
So I'm Geraldine Clifford, and I'm from Branch 214, San Francisco. And I just want to tell you that there already is an organization from Socialist Equality Party that has established International Workers Alliance of Rank and File Workers, and they have encouraged every workplace to meet off-site and then go back to the union with what they've got to stay informed, and they connect everybody. And I think that a previous speaker also said, emphasized the importance of uniting with workers everywhere, because yeah, the working class is certainly under attack. And I passed a resolution it took 3 months with them finagling the union. This is my union, making it impossible. And I finally passed a resolution which was against TREP. And I think that I think that we aren't we in this group waiting for next year's contract? and not, instead of doing something now, like TREP was, can I read the resolution quickly? Whereas the USPS is engaged in a new method of route evaluation that involves invasive surveillance technology to speed up and discipline letter carriers called TREP. And whereas it was adopted in 2 memorandums of understanding with the NALC on May 10th, 2022, and whereas the scanner and GPS technology that is central to TREP tracks every movement of every carrier during the workday in what is called digital street review, and whereas DSR tracks every second of a carrier's activity and subject them to disciplinary charges for stationary events that are defined as any time when productivity is interrupted, be it therefore resolved that we, the members of Branch 214, call on President Renfro to withdraw from this shameful agreement and immediately, and be it further resolved that TREP not be contained in the upcoming contract between the NALC and USPS, because it is already formulated. It'll be in that contract. It'll okay that contract. And this contract is not going to be a good one. So to just resign ourselves to the fact that it's going to be terrible isn't enough, because DeJoy is moving along at a very rapid pace in his Delivering for America program. And he's concentrating actually formulating a spoken wheel kind of operation, like modeling it after Amazon. And we can't wait. You can't just say, so we're gonna go to work and the next time we have a contract. No, this contract is gonna be killer. And I also want to remind everyone that we didn't have the right to strike in 1970. I'm a retiree. And we didn't have the right to strike in 1970, but did. And you have to bear in mind that we're going to be nailed. And then the other thing I want to say quickly is that I've heard several people lauding the marvelous contracts that were under open bargaining of the Teamsters and the UAW. Those are bad contracts, and thousands of workers have been laid off since those contracts. And the UAW, Sean Fain, is now being investigated for corruption, and he's doing everything he can to keep from the charges being revealed. And he's the replacement of the previous president of the UAW, who is in jail for the same thing, for spending millions of union dues to enrich himself. So no, the unions are corrupt, top to bottom, and not just ours. They're all working for management. And
can you please finish up this thought, please, Geraldine? And then we can.
Well, that's what I have to say.
Okay, thanks for that, Geraldine. I definitely agree with fighting against TRAP. Anything that gives management, as Corey's talked about on his podcast, as I'm sure talked about in our stations, anything that gives management more surveillance to harass letter carriers should be something that we should fight against. I look forward to speaking in favor of that if I get the chance on that resolution at the convention itself. And just on some other things, what we're trying to do is transform our unions and turn them into fighting vehicles. And that's what I think we're making really good headway in here towards today. So next up, we got John Murphy. I couldn't find you at first because you're in Murphy, Florida. Murphy.Florida. So John, hey, go ahead. Should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hey, what's up? My name is John Murphy. I'm just a rank and file member. I don't hold any branch position. I am a delegate to the convention in 2 weeks. 2 months ago, at this point, it was like 3 months ago, my branch floated around the idea of endorsing the resolution, but the branch leadership got a phone call from National. Paul Barner called them up and was like, hey, this is a bad resolution, making stuff go public. You know, the Congress could step in and do that rhetoric. So it was about 2 months ago. I was driving home. My branch president told me that. And I was like, that's cool. That doesn't affect my opinion. As a delegate, I represent the members, not National. So about 2 weeks ago, I printed out 60 copies of the open resolution And I passed them around to every worker in my office, asking them how they think I should vote, yes or no. And it was a resounding yes. This should be an obvious resolution that should pass. And then I informed them that National is calling all the delegates mostly and telling them to vote no on this. So my branch president found out, and he was like, "Yeah, this is a great idea. Let's put all the resolutions once we get the book on that Sunday when we arrive in Boston. Let's put that resolution book into like a PDF format and blast it out to the membership, and have the members decide on how the resolutions should go." And I was like, that is a great step towards democracy. We might not have endorsed the open bargaining, but at least we did a big step towards democracy and transparency with the resolution. So I suggest that others, we have 2 weeks left. If you don't know where your delegates stand, I would assume you guys should kind of do the same approach I did. Just print out the resolution, pass it around to your coworkers, a hard copy. That way they don't just dismiss it. That hard copy in the hand is kind of powerful to do, and also helps you build a rank and file movement inside your office. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I mean, I really love hearing things like that, and the sort of updates you've been sending me over the last couple of like weeks and months. And I mean, this is how it's done. This is how we've built. This is how we've gotten to the point that we're at, is from these conversations, you know, with your casemate or at your station or at your branch meetings. And I definitely second what John said. Use, you know, if you have your branch caucuses or your region caucuses, or you have a delegates meeting before the convention, if you haven't already had yours, bring up the open bargaining resolution and make the case for it, like John has, and just look how that has turned and made it so that now there's more momentum for open bargaining in his branch. It also shows that it's not just like the delegates do this on our behalf and maybe they give us an update afterwards. No, like this can involve rank and file members who, you know, aren't delegates to the convention to be a part of this process. That's what we're trying to do. So with that, we just got a few last speakers. If anyone wants to get on, I would do it while our next speaker is speaking. Otherwise, I'm going to cut off Stack, and so we can all get out of here and enjoy the rest of our Sundays. So next up, we have Alex Glassmuck. Alex, go ahead. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alex. I'm in Boston Branch 34. I'm also on the interim coordinating committee. But I just wanted to, you know, reiterate a couple of things that are important about the labor movement as a whole. We're picking up where our forefathers left off with this. The labor movement fell asleep for decades. You know, it was nothing. You know, it kind of just let things happen to it. And that was when this development happened, like of just letting the leadership go through. You know, this business unionism backdoor things. But you know that the sleeping giant of American labor is, you know, beginning to rumble with, you know, UAW and everything like that. You know, the stand-up strikes were powerful, and so, you know, those are the types of things that we're going to be needing to do. We're going to need everyone involved, everyone on this call and everyone off of this call. We can't just be, you know, coming to Zoom meetings and everything like that. That's not going to be enough. You know, and that's when we have this opportunity, you know, to come together to make something real, you know, build these bonds that we're going to need for each other. It's going to be difficult. We're going to experience pressures that we all may never experience, but we deal with a lot of shit every day on the workroom floor. Everything that the working class has won has never been given to us. We took it, we fought. It was, you know, blood, sweat, and tears, you know, literal blood at times. So, you know, I just wanted to say real quick, we start at the convention, we start with open bargaining, but we need to go much further, because when we fight, we can win.
All right, thanks, Alex. Up next, last person before I'll say a few things to end the meeting. Last person we've got is Chris Pennick. Go ahead, Chris. You should be able to unmute yourself.
All right. Thank you, Tyler. Yeah, I'm Chris Pennock from Branch 9, Minneapolis. I'm also on the BFN organizing committee. I had a few things I wanted to say. One, make sure that people sign in on the sign-in that Tim has posted, and then sign up for the WhatsApp group. We're going to do a WhatsApp group chat at the convention. And it's not really going to be a discussion where your phone is blowing up all the time. But we want to be able to communicate with people that, you know, want to push for a fighting union, let people know about what we think about, you know, the resolutions when we get the booklet, important ones to watch out for, you know, let people know about votes that are coming up, you know, so people don't miss important votes and things of that nature. You know, also reminders about the different events that are happening, the Communities and Postal Workers United group event, our event. So I'd encourage people to do that. I'm glad that we had the rural carrier brothers speak about all the things that they're going through. You know, we should definitely be supporting each other, and I support some of the things that Corey and David Noble have said about, you know, why do we even have two different letter carrier unions? You know, I mean, that could be a long-term goal as well. You know, there's strength in numbers. But I wanted to respond also to one thing that the rural brothers said, talking about fighting our own union. I think we have to remember that we're fighting against management ultimately. And even when we have union leaders that are not fighting for us, ultimately it's management that we're fighting. And we have to keep that in mind, that it's the influence of the bosses, of management, of you know, the political parties that are the parties of the bosses. It's that influence that we're fighting, and we have to keep that in mind, because if you forget that, then it can lead to something that somebody put in the chat about saying that unions can't be reformed or transformed. That is deadly to the working class, and and we at BFN strongly oppose that. The unions can be reformed. They have a long history of being the only organizations in capitalist society that fight for working people. You know, go back and read Teamster Rebellion. You know, look at the history of the labor movement, the 1970s strike. Unions will fight for people if we can get organized, right? It's a question of leadership. Because if you take that seriously, that they can't be transformed, well, then you're going to drop, you know, then that's when you get people dropping out of unions. And that's, I mean, that's a dead end. And then just lastly, I'll say that, you know, people are talking about Biden. And just speaking for myself, I believe that we need a labor party, that we're fighting, you know, us in the labor movement as workers, members of the working class, we're fighting with one hand tied behind our back. And, you know, there's a lot of rhetoric about Biden having been the most pro-union president of all time. Ask the railroad workers what they think about that, right? They voted to go on strike, and Biden and, you know, the Democrats and Republicans voted to make their strike illegal. You know, and opportunistically, some of the right wingers, I remember Ted Cruz and I think some of the others voted, you know, to make it legal in, you know, in a ploy to try to convince working people that they're fighting for workers. And you see a shift in politics right now. Sean O'Brien of the Teamsters going to speak at the RNC convention. You know, they are trying to convince workers that they are fighting for us. And with, you know, with Trump being one of the first bourgeois politicians to talk about, you know, the carnage that working people are facing. And of course, he doesn't have any ideas about, or, you know, no intention of actually doing anything for workers. But, you know, politics is changing right now. And so I think that's one thing, you know, not that we're calling for a labor party, you know, to be built right now, but that I think we need to put that out there. And I'm going to post one article in the chat that talks about this. So I'd encourage people to check that out. And I look forward to seeing everyone at the convention.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, that's I definitely really appreciate a lot of your points there. I agree about the need. We can transform unions. These are organizations by and for workers, and we can transform them. I also agree with the points about the need for a workers' party. Just as you were speaking, just as this was happening, Biden officially dropped out of the race. I'm sure people's phones are blowing up. I mean, just look at the mess that we're in right now. If there was any time for us to just like think about the need for an independent party that can really truly represent the interests of working class people and fight for them, now is the time, for us to really start exploring that process and looking into what it would take to get there. These are all things that we want to be a part of, and discussions we want to have in Build a Fighting NALC in the months to come, in the years to come. But I appreciate a lot of those comments. We do have one last speaker, and then I will make some last final remarks. So Joni Weber, go ahead, Joni, and then I'll say a few last things, and then we can all go on with our days. I really appreciate everyone. Just stick around for the next 5 or so minutes, and then everyone can go on. Joni, go ahead. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Just quickly, as people were talking, I wanted to suggest that what I've started in my branch is I have a group text with all the CCAs. So I text them whenever there's a union meeting to please come, support the thing, support our steward, who's awesome. He's a shark. But also, I've heard in podcasts, like CCAs are almost blamed for not being active and not voting, but we don't engage them. So I just want to encourage everybody to find them, bring them in, and then they can vote. Because it looks like I don't know, the older scouts don't enlist their support. And so if we get them and help them know their rights, I think that's good. I send them links to Corey's show and classes of mail and other people like that. But they have to know their rights so that they can not get fired and not quit and not be bullied. And so we have to just send them the stuff, because I didn't have it for 2 years. So that's all.
Thanks, Joni. I think you bring up a really good point. What we're trying to do is create a union that people, it is a sacrifice to get in, to not only work, especially the hours we're working, but then get involved in the union on top of that to try to better our conditions and better our work, our wages, all these things. But I think it's a sacrifice that's worth it. What we need to do is create the union that shows every member that it is worth it to be involved, especially as soon as they come in the door. I always introduce myself to the CCAs or the PTFs at our station, and make sure they feel supported and encouraged and know their basic rights and have my number. That's just one part of the process. This movement that we're trying to build is I think the bigger part of that process. I want to make one final appeal. Tim's going to put it in the chat again. To sign in and to donate. I just want to say I'm blown away. I'm super excited to say, like, we've gotten 22 donations so far. We've raised $985. We're like a third of the way almost to our goal. This is incredible. I mean, Corey's going to put it up on his website and mention it on the show later. Definitely appreciate that, brother. And I mean, this is how it's done. No one's going to do this for us. This is going to be us that make this possible. And so I'm going to say last few things. Over 40 branches have passed open bargaining resolution, 2 state associations. We've not just changed the conversation, but we've shown that we're a serious force. I'm glad, Chris, part of signing in is signing, if you're a delegate, we're going to have a WhatsApp group chat. It's just going to be admins that can put in there. It's just going to be updates. So we can give updates real time. So you don't have to worry about your phone blowing up. What we're trying to do is build a fighting union. Fight for a strong contract, fight for our rights on the workroom floor. So let's fight for open bargaining, but let's link that to the fight for the need for a broader transformation of NALC. We need a fighting program with demands that can be achieved, that people can get organized around. We're going to post a recording of this meeting on the Build a Fighting NALC YouTube channel. We're going to share that with others in your branch. An email will be sent out with all the necessary information. I know we've thrown a lot out there. We're going to have a nice email with it all segmented and organized with the necessary information, links to the YouTube channel, the GoFundMe to pay for the meeting room, public meeting time and place, and all that good stuff. I'll say this last thing. These Build a Fighting NALC Zoom meetings that we've held over the past 6 months, the momentum and movement we've built for open bargaining and for the transformation of NALC, this year's convention is just the beginning. Let's get organized for the long haul. And I think we've taken the first very important steps in that direction. And so with that, I'll let you all go. Solidarity, everybody. I look forward to meeting everyone at the convention. For those who can't make it, we're looking to live stream that public meeting. And I'm really excited to see what we can build together. So with that, I'll let you all go. And I appreciate everyone. Let's win open bargaining. Let's transform NALC. Let's build a fighting NALC. Thank you. Bye-bye now. I'm going to stop that recording now.